Love is awful. It's painful, it's frightening. Makes you doubt yourself, judge yourself, distance yourself from the other people in your life. It makes you selfish. It makes you creepy. It makes you obsessed with your hair. It makes you cruel. It makes you say and do things you never thought you would do. It's all any of us want, and it's hell when we get there. So no wonder it's something we don't want to do on our own. I was taught if we're born with love, then life is about choosing the right place to put it. People talk about that a lot, it feeling right. When it feels right, it's easy. But I'm not sure that's true. It takes strength to know what's right. And love isn't something that weak people do. Being a romantic takes a hell of a lot of hope. I think what they mean is, when you find somebody that you love, it feels like hope. Above is an excerpt from Fleabag, a mini-drama series based on the award-winning one-woman play written by writer and actress Phoebe Waller-Bridge. The tragicomedy series shows Fleabag, although never actually named in the show, as she tries to figure out her life while coping with the recent loss of her mother as well as her best friend, and the events that follow. The speech above is included in the very last episode of the whole show, and is given at the wedding of Fleabag's father and stepmother, by the priest who Fleabag has fallen in love with. Although the priest's speech does not directly include any metaphors about love, it rests upon many, just as our everyday lives. While the ordinary person is unlikely to talk in sonnets, unless maybe you're a Shakespeare actor, it's not difficult to come across metaphors in our ordinary lives. Perhaps we live by them more than we're aware of. Time is money, silence is gold, and life is a journey. These familiar sayings are conceptual metaphors. Conceptual metaphor is a way in which one idea is understood in terms of another. Based in cognitive science and linguistics, conceptual metaphor theory was proposed by George Lakoff and Mark Johnson in their influential book Metaphors We Live By. Very roughly summarized, the author's argument is that, quote, metaphor is pervasive in everyday life, not just in language but in thought and action. Our ordinary conceptual system, in terms of which we both think and act, is fundamentally metaphorical in nature, end quote. Their claim is that concepts are perceived metaphorically, according to similar elements that allow subcategorization, thus creating a coherent system of cognition to which a coherent system of metaphorical concepts correspond. What they mean is that we are inherently metaphorical beings when it comes to cognition, that we perceive, think, and speak within an existing metaphorical framework which is embedded in each of our cultural backgrounds. Lakoff and Johnson give some interesting examples of those related to love. In Chapter 10 of Metaphors We Live By, they give 5 conceptual metaphors on love. Love is a physical force, love is a patient, love is madness, love is magic, and love is war. Yet one can easily think of more. Love is a unity, love is a journey, love is food, love is fire, love is a game. The universality as well as complexity of love allows such multiple conceptual metaphors of love. Now coming back to the pre-speech in Fleabag, we can recognize which ones are in operation. Roughly dividing the speech into 2 parts, the first half includes the metaphors love is madness and love is unity, using the former to bring out unexpected and less obvious aspects of the latter, leading audiences to gain a new perspective. In its latter half, the speech can be seen as refuting the metaphor love is natural force, thus emphasizing one's agency in love, and finally arriving at a conclusion by forming its own metaphor, love is hope. In the first half of the speech, the negative aspects of love are emphasized. Not only is love said to be awful, painful, and frightening, but love also has negative effects on the individual's rational thought process, leading one to doubt, judge, and isolate oneself. Furthermore, the speech mentions that love makes one selfish, creepy, cruel, and obsessed with your hair, and wraps it up in this hauntingly true sentence: love makes you say and do things you never thought you would do. Thus, we can see that the metaphor love is madness is in operation here. The speech implies those in love become someone other than themselves, someone who does things that one wouldn't or couldn't do if they were their usual, rational, right-minded self, someone incapable of making the best choices that one would in their sane state of mind. Here the characteristics of madness and insanity can be clearly seen, along with the metaphor of love is madness, which is emphasized throughout the first half of the speech by the repetitive use of the verb make. We become our insane mad selves when in love, and love is precisely what causes us to be that insane mad someone. Yet this rather awful aspect of love, described to be hell, which, considering that it's a priest giving this speech, leads us to think of the worst, is what also makes reciprocal love possible. The creativity of the speech lies here. Because love is so painful and frightening, we are inclined to do it together. The speech implies that the pain and the madness that causes such pain is what drives people to come together, to find each other, to not be alone in the pain, hence allowing reciprocal love. The metaphor love is unity echoes through here, and how this metaphor is achieved allows one to have a fresh perspective on the two metaphors, love is madness and love is unity. Where often the two are considered opposite to each other, with the former having a more negative, unsustainable, and temporary connotation than the latter, the speech reveals an alternative reading that the two may be connected, or even that the former is what specifically allows the latter to be possible. This interesting reading seems to almost justify love altogether, both its pain and its comfort. The act of loving is a painful and frightening experience for everyone, and this is what makes the feeling of wanting to be with someone completely natural. In this sense, the second half of the speech is even more interesting as it refutes the metaphor, love is natural force. The priest talks about how he disagrees to what he was taught, that love is often given and that it is easy when the right place is chosen. This latter half seems to be opposing the metaphor, love is natural force, a metaphor that focuses on love as literally something natural that a person cannot control with their will or power. Not only does the speech presuppose that love is about individual choice, but further goes on to say making that choice that one considers is right is never easy. By openly doubting the phrase, when it feels right, it's easy, the speech seems to imply that even when something feels right, it is difficult to act on that feeling. It takes strong determination to carry it out, and the individual must be the one to have that strength to determine and choose. Here we see how the speech refutes love is natural force by emphasizing the individual's agency and will over an almost destiny-like easiness when it comes to love. Love is not a natural force that makes people powerless in its wake and sweeps them away, but rather something that requires people to gain power and act on it to achieve. Passing through the three metaphors, describing love as madness, using it to reinterpret love as unity, but refuting the conventional love is natural force, the speech ends by forming its own metaphor in love. Love is hope. This metaphor that the speech comes to create is most clearly expressed by, when you find somebody that you love, it feels like hope, and becomes possible by the interaction with the three metaphors of madness, unity, and natural force that the speech has come to build. The metaphor is constructed in the sense that love gives us hope of meeting someone that will make us realize that we are not alone in the pain and awfulness of love, despite the difficulty of achieving that unity for which the desire is natural but the realization is not. Hence, the speech and its relation to the four metaphors can be seen as the embodiment of the priest and Fleabag's love that cannot be achieved but gives Fleabag hope for life, nonetheless. The very last scene of this series ends with Fleabag and the priest saying their last goodbyes at the bus stop. To Fleabag's first and last direct confession of love, the priest replies, "It'll pass." Perhaps it can be said that the priest's answer to Fleabag is brilliantly bittersweet, because it shows that all the metaphors of love in his speech above, as well as Fleabag and the priest's story, eventually passes and leaves us with the last one. Love is hope. This metaphor that the speech creates perfectly represents the story of Fleabag that ends with Fleabag gaining hope of fighting through life. And maybe it is the conclusive one because it is perhaps the most important one, because hope is what keeps us all going for both life and love. Thank you for listening.